Hey there, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
UnSpun. I did that last week. UnSpun.
UnSpun.
Do that again?
No, I think that's perfect. We're going to keep it just how it is because you know what that is? Very different than every other time, which is the goal as to how you introduce the podcast.
It's the new thing, or the old thing. I don't know. It's not meant to be that way, but it just happened to be that way.
You know what? There are people who have just found our podcast.
Really?
Yes. I saw it on Instagram, Insta Stories. The Orca on Instagram put us out there as their flagship podcast.
Oh, wow.
No big deal. Huge deal. So then I saw the sponsored post on Facebook, I think it was.
Yes.
And
Wow.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but Gudrun?
Gudrun?
Langhoff. She said, shouldn't we be called a different spin or another spin? And I replied to her, no.
We're unspinning.
We're unspinning the news. The whole idea here and pass along, our motivation is to take the complexities out of the political spin that gets put on most agendas, most things, and not dumb it down, but remove those layers and just say what it is.
Yes, because when I was in office, it was always very frustrating in City Council. With Vision Vancouver, they had a machine and they would spin, everything was a spin, and I would say that a lot. Because I would say the story is so different than what you're saying, and they were very good at it.
Why don't we just tell people? Well, because mostly you want the numbers to be spun or the agenda to be spun to make it look beneficial to the taxpayer, or
especially if it's bad news.
Let's start with bad news then. As on Wednesday, the homeless number. Yes, the homeless numbers are in. And, bring us through how you consumed it.
Well, I mean, and I've had many years of this where every year was a new record. And every year they would try to find a way to say this wasn't so bad, we were making inroads, and they would find ways. And this year, another record year. Up again, 21...
2233. 2,233 people are homeless.
And the way it was presented was pretty much like, good news, we've slowed down the number of the growth of...
Can we just go
back?
This is
a new low of growth.
What year
or something like that.
What year was homelessness supposed to be completely eradicated?
2015.
Right, okay.
We did it.
What year
Congratulations.
is it? No. Oh, so...
We didn't do it. No, we did not do it, and we can't do it. I have always said that. Vancouver can't do it on its own. It cannot. And actually, Kennedy Stewart did say that. He's going after the federal government a little bit. Obviously, it's an election year. He's a big NDPer, so he's trying to help the NDP in this case. So he's attacking the Liberals and the Conservatives. But I would say it's 100% has to be federal. Has to be.
And going back to Kennedy Stewart when running for mayor, he did continually say, I moderated a couple events, and he said, I have an excellent understanding of how the federal government works. I have a relationship with the federal government. He kept saying that, I can do this, I can do it. So now we're going to see, because if he's saying, I need the feds on this, it should be a federal issue. And if he knows how the inner workings of the federal government...
Sure. Good luck with that. I mean, I can't imagine an NDP or former MP is going to have much influence on Liberal or Conservative policy in an election year. I know, but I'm hopeful that both these parties will figure out a way to present something, whether it be stick or carrot approach. Here's a little bit of data for you. So there was in Trudeau in the 70s, Trudeau 1 did a big program. It's been an incentive-based program, tax incentives, build housing. A lot of it was that middle housing, 3-story walk-ups in the burbs.
I miss those.
And that was underwritten by private sector through tax incentives, a lot of that. And that went away actually under Chrétien. He canceled that in the early 90s. And actually a little fact that I learned through some sources this week was that and it wasn't 43 Communications people just yet. I'll get to that.
Oh, I just was having water there.
I know. And actually, I will say that because that's what that line did come before. 43. I should have said that.
Communications people were doing the spin on the smallest increase.
Yes. But up until the early 90s, in Vancouver, we were building about 2,000 units a year of affordable housing, whether it be social, co-op.
Right, so 2,000 affordable units every year up until...
About 92,
right.
93, 94, around there. And then there was a question, and there was some information that we had a city plan back then, and they asked residents if their opinion on whether or not to continue this. The federal government was canceling this program. do you as taxpayers want to underwrite the cost of these homes that we've been building using federal money for the last several years? And the number I got from my source was that 85% of Vancouver residents said absolutely not, it's not our job. Not our job to build this housing, we can't afford it. It's not something taxpayers of Vancouver should be doing.
Right, but should be noted that at that time, it felt like we had enough. There wasn't a rental crisis.
There wasn't homeless people everywhere.
No.
There was institutions where people were being housed if they were having mental health issues. In the early 90s, housing went away and we deinstitutionalized people because of the NDP provincial government's programs. There was a plan put in place. We've talked about this before. The plan didn't happen, the full plan, because the NDP lost the election, and then anyways.
Everything broke down.
Everything broke down, and now we have this problem in every market in Canada.
As a citizen, when the what did you call it? When the deinstitution. There you go. Like for me, it was like, oh, Riverview's closing. And then all of a sudden, we started to hear about more and more problems on the streets. People acting up, desperate people in desperate need of mental health support. And there's no recovering from that. There has been no act to recover from that since then.
No.
That's a very...
Both portfolios, housing and dealing with mental health. And no doubt, institutionalization is a dirty word, and politically it absolutely is. And I can tell you through some public hearings that I went through, people would be so upset if it was a project on Cambie Street and it was for people with physical disabilities, and we were rebuilding this facility and planning to rebuild this, and we used the word institution.
They don't even like facility now.
Yeah, that's right.
I was corrected.
And they were so mad about it.
BC Care Providers, I did an event for them. I moderated an event on medical assistance in dying, which was fascinating. But I would say facility, because my dad lives in a facility. And then I was speaking with Daniel Fontaine, who's the head of BC Care Providers, and he said, please don't use that word. It's the F word. And I'd never heard of it like that. And I said, okay, well, what should I say? Because I always thought home had negative connotation. We're putting grandma in a home, right?
Yeah.
It's a care facility. And he's like, no, it's a home because it's a new home. And I thought, okay, well, that's a vernacular you can wrap our head around. So what is it for
warehousing? That's kind of what they often refer to it. Like, you can't warehouse me.
People, but where's because a mental institution does sound like we're locking you up, we're throwing away the key, we're putting you in a straitjacket.
A lot of horrible things happen over the years
no
in
doubt.
Institutions.
So mental health support facilities, homes, but whatever we call it, we need it.
It's brutal, and this is spin. This is really about messaging and getting people for buy-in to solve some of these problems. Is about some of it is messaging, and we're so caught up in this vernacular, this language, this way we say things that we don't get anything done.
Which is what I want to point out. A really good friend of mine, somebody who I believe is right on the front lines when it comes to the homelessness crisis that we're seeing in Metro Vancouver. Mark Brand, Save On Meats, Mark Brand Inc. He does so many projects. This man is he runs a charity called Being Hungry Sucks. It's about everybody deserves food and shelter of some form.
Got that token program.
He does. So you can buy tokens on the Save On Meats website, and you can buy them, and then people will come by the store and they say, are there any tokens? Exactly. And they can get a healthy meal. So I love that about Mark Brand. He's so frustrated about how the spin on the homelessness numbers and the report. He was so pissed, and one of the things he said was, do you know that it costs 3 to 6 times more to have people in and out of terrifying and horrific situations living on the street than it does to actually give people an option of where to live or shelter?
It's the math is crazy, and there are some numbers I saw going around on Twitter, and none of them are being verified. Whether it's $1 million a day we spend in the downtown east side, or $100,000 a day, or whatever it is, we're spending a lot of money not solving this problem. And absolutely, in my time there, we were doing all these programs, and the city was doing. And comparatively to other cities in the region, was doing more for housing. We built more, and part of it started with the MPA, with 14 sites that we turned into social housing, and then Vision did continue that, but not in this huge on the social housing side. But this can't be a city-only issue, and I think that is continually being proven by the data when we have this number not going down, yet we're building 600 units this past year in the modular housing.
Imagine.
And they're saying imagine if we hadn't built those. Well,
it wouldn't have been the smallest increase.
Well, we don't
without
know
them.
where are these people coming from, and I don't mean geography. I think what's happening, if you look at Burnaby until recently, for example, and I really call them out on this, they actually had lost rental units in their city up until this year when they're just turning the corner and going back to it. So all of their people that were renting were coming to Vancouver. So it's a trickle down problem. So you have the affordable units suddenly they become more expensive, and then the lower you go down, the least expensive units then become the street. And that's what we're seeing.
In the number, I was doing the Linda Steele show on CKNW when these numbers came out, so I had all the graphs and I had my access to the release in depth. And the number of people who identified as homeless only for the last 6 months was huge. The number of people who had been homeless only for a year was huge. There are people living paycheck to paycheck that have one thing happen in their lives, and now they don't have a place to live. And the numbers
place to go.
The numbers that really shocked me beyond everything was the First Nations and Aboriginal people make up 2% of the population of the city of Vancouver and make up 39% of the homeless population. 39%. Something is incredibly broken, and that this isn't an absolute 5-alarm fire to fix is shocking. We talk about so many other things, and it's like, these are people and they're dying. And the opioid, I had Sarah Blythe on the show yesterday, front lines of it. The opioid crisis is as significant as it is because there are people who are homeless living in an alley on the downtown east side. Do you not think you'd want to medicate that away? Is her point. And it's a bigger conversation. Right. So there's mental health, drug addiction.
Foster care system represents more than 50% of the people in there.
George, you're
that's
so right.
That's a huge issue. That's in the reports every year. They talk about the number of people who have gone through the foster care system who are homeless. Why is that? What is going wrong here? That's a provincial issue. I know the NDP have done a few things related to foster care, which is good. But clearly there's a lot of things broken in our system, and it's not just about homes. It's about all this stuff, this matrix. I think you can look back to when we talk about institutionalization. You look at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the worst possible branding for institutions ever, because from that moment forward, I think a lot of governments started opened their eyes to this horribleness that was going on, but they didn't find solutions. No. We ended up just
shut them down,
and now what? Here we are, not only in Vancouver, but every city, every major city, in every country in the world, we're seeing homelessness. And it's this mentality and this way we're not taking care of our people. And I think it's a real problem. And from a national point of view, if you were to say if it's going to cost you $5 a day or $5 a year, whatever the numbers, there's 40 million people in Canada. How much money do we need whether it's through tax incentives, whatever it is, there has to be some money spent to build housing quickly across the country, and as well simultaneously dealing with this issue of people with mental health care issues and the foster care system and all those other things.
And not allowing places like the Balmoral, right? The SROs.
Continued lawsuit with the city that's still...
It's unbelievable.
They're going to win that. They're not going to be shut down. I mean, they're shut down for now, but they're not going to lose their
But there needs to be more accountability to care for the basic human rights of all citizens in Canada, period. Like there needs, the fact, we talk about it all the time off the air. It keeps me awake at night that there are people in this country who don't have access to clean drinking water. I mean, it's just,
amazing.
It is. And those should be the platforms that we're talking about as we head into election feasting. We got to talk about elections.
I would say all parties better have a solution, show us a solution for the homelessness in this country. Get it on your platform, guys, all of you.
Or should we talk about, getting rid of plastic straws? And then asking what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, instead of using single-use plastic water bottles, what do you use, Mr. Prime Minister? What a gaffe that was. Oh my God.
Drinking paper bubble cups.
It's in the thing with a thing of plastic, not plastic. Water in a box, painful. In a juice box, paper box. And now, did you see the memes now of the conservative wearing T-shirt woman trying to drink out of a box, like a big box?
Yes.
Such a gaffe.
Big gaffe. Basic question. Should have had an answer. And then there's some stuff coming out that's saying he spends $300 a month on bottled water at his residence. Yeah. You're like, guys, come on. This is like, this way that. And then the other example of if you're going to have a decision, and part of this decision, by the way, with Trudeau, this is all about him positioning himself as an environmental guy to beat the Greens and beat the NDP at that game.
Well, that just backfired.
Yeah, but probably he's going to have a bunch more announcements over the next,
of course,
and that will be long.
Still bought a pipeline, so that's going to be a problem for the people who love the green.
Strong economy and clean environment or safe.
Well, you got to have your messaging straight, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. I'm going back. I did a lot of radio in the last couple of days, filling in for Linda Steele on CKNW. Had the opportunity to speak with Andrew Scheer, the federal Conservative Party leader. Was a very tight. You can have Andrew for 8 minutes. He talks in 4 minutes chunks, so it's hard to get questions in. But I did manage to cover a couple of things with him.
Not the soundbite guy you need. Yeah.
Had I made it a drinking game where if you were listening that every time he mentioned Trudeau or the federal Liberals, you had to take a shot of tequila, you would have been drunk after 8 minutes, like smashed. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to say to him, Mr. Scheer, could you please answer this next question without referencing the Liberals or Mr. Trudeau at all? Go. Like I wanted to, and I knew that would sound condescending because it would have been.
I mean, it's interesting. It's early days. The election campaign officially hasn't started, but in politics, when you're in opposition, you're attacking. Of course, I was there. You attack the party in power, the leader of that party. It's all about them, and you try to to put them down in any way you possibly can. But once you get into election mode, if you start saying the other party's name or the other guys, the guys who you're saying the name of, they're going, awesome, thank you very much. Keep saying my name. Keep saying the things you
No such
hate
thing
about
as bad
me.
publicity. You keep saying my name.
It's the purpose. So it's got to be inspirational if you want to win. So
what are the
better
three
get
things?
On that soon.
The three things.
Well, you got to have. There's two kinds of campaigns. There's mainly there's two kinds. There's like the change campaign, which is like Obama did the change campaign.
That's
right.
It's time.
Scheer he should be doing the change. It's time for change. He's kind of doing the mistake. He's still not ready. For about Trudeau, I saw those commercials.
Yeah, I saw that
still not ready.
In the Raptors game.
Yeah, still not ready.
I was like,
Trudeau was going to do stay the course. This economy is strong. I care about the environment. Why would you change now? It would be a real mistake. That would be his campaign, and then Scheer will be this guy's not competent. We need to change. We need to figure these things out. We need to, and that's the kind of campaigns. But if you're the party and your messaging is all about your competition, that's not good.
So is the Green Party's messaging? Like the fear, like if we don't act on climate, we're all
running
going to die?
Fear. I mean, fear is generally how you run a campaign.
Yeah.
People like to. You want to be inspirational, but you also want to get people scared about what the other option is. Yeah. You don't talk about that, but I am the one who's going to do everything right, and everything else is wrong.
I did ask Andrew Scheer about it because on June 19th he is going to announce his. There's a vision, the Conservative vision. There you go. He wrote it down.
It seems early.
He's going to talk about just his platform for climate because people have been complaining that the Conservative Party is not addressing it. Right. Shockingly, because many of us who were watching in the Harper years saw Stephen Harper going, that science, that stuff we were doing in the Arctic. Let's just burn that. Yeah, let's just get rid of that.
And there are a lot of people you meet that still have that opinion.
So, but there's fear on that, right? So, but then I asked him about federal pharmacare, which is a fascinating piece, right? Particularly here in British Columbia, we've had numerous news stories where there were very rare diseases that have very impactful meds, like 90 to 95% success rate with these meds, but they're $250,000 a year. Mm-hmm. In British Columbia, they're $250,000 a year. In Alberta, they're free. So we kind of got on that, because within the federal pharma plan, the single payer that the Liberals have tabled, the report that they've tabled that they said they're going to do, it's only $15.2 billion a year. Okay, but is there something that can we get big pharma across the board affordability? And he kind of danced around it and said, well, yes, we kind of would want to do that. We're looking at that.
Interesting. Trump's always talked about the pharmacare system, and he's talked about the insurance industry as being too controlling in America. That's one of the things he talks a lot about, and you have to ask yourself, who's in control of the agenda in Canada? The people making the money, or the people who are supposed to be overseeing the government, which is
again
the
at the forefront of a platform should be the question on behalf of people who need it the most. You shouldn't have to choose which prescription medication you are going to buy this month so that you can continue to eat this month. You should be able to afford whatever you need to be healthy. And as able-bodied people, we'd be okay with footing some of that bill.
Yes, but to win elections, you need to
cut taxes.
Well, no, you need to have things that make people want to vote for you. And so that's not, it literally is kind of rocket science. It's like they literally do polling, they figure out what the issues that matter, you try to stick to your two things, you don't talk about anything else. That's how you win. If you start straying off, every time you see this all the time, it's a strategic. Well, you'll ask about pharmacare, and somehow they'll take you back to the economy,
no doubt,
whatever their issue is. And
Christy Clark was very good at that.
Yeah, I mean, she ran with the Family First campaign in 2013, and she won on that. And then what happened? She didn't.
But you're right. I'm just saying, on point, on message. It doesn't matter what the question is. Media training. You bring it around to what you want to talk about.
Yes,
you just
and it's really hard.
Bring it around.
You can ask, and I'd learned when as a journalist, ask the same question, the exact same words, just, 3 times minimum.
Didn't we see somebody in Parliament that came out and I can't remember who it was.
Oh yeah, and he was.
But he said
it was Alberta. Actually,
it was Alberta.
And he kept saying the same thing over again.
The exact
We're
going
going to assess
you posted that.
Yeah, that was painful.
Oh, we haven't mentioned your Twitter handle because people need to follow you.
George _ Affleck.
Affleck. Jody Vance. At Jody Vance.
So easy for her.
It's so easy. Did you read my column?
I did, yes. You made me read it.
I did. See? Thank you, Peanut Gallery.
If only Jody could walk around the province and force people.
That's right.
She'd have the biggest readership. It's very good to column. It's something I come close to home for me because I was swarmed. But you can tell a bit about.
Well, basically, I want the punishment to fit kids these days because bullies wear pink shirts on one day and then they bully other days. And the story of the swarming
sounds
in
like
Surrey,
Vision Vancouver, actually, in my experience with politics.
How many people?
the 43 communications people.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Yes.
In all seriousness, the jumping off point for my column this week on the Orca.ca is the swarming incident in Surrey that happened where this kid, apparently lured by a trusted friend of his to a secluded spot behind a school,
so weird,
where a bunch of kids that he didn't even know forced him to be on his knees and kiss their feet, and then they attacked him, and all of it was videotaped, and then it was posted on social media. So in my column, I reference the fact that back in the day, kids would come back and say, he hit me, he punched me, they did this, and they'd be like, well, guys, we have to believe somewhere in the middle is the truth. With video proof evidence of something like this, there should be an on-record discussion between school administrators and parents. There should be consequences for the kids. But the whole thing, we don't want to ruin their lives. Let's not get law enforcement involved. There should be new procedures put in place with law enforcement on how to handle something like this.
Because especially for minors, like what's the deal?
But if it goes one step further and a tragic incident happens with that kid that none of those children actually thought was going to happen, but
we have the Rena Verk, the whole. We have the best example of what horrible swarming kids can do.
And that was how many years ago?
Yeah, 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago. It was 25 years ago. I was at CBC then. Just terrible. And I've had that experience where I was swarmed as a teenager.
Story.
Well, I was at the mall in Surrey with my buddy, and we were walking around. We were Christmas shopping, and these dudes, about 6 dudes, come up to us, and they're like, "Hey, you looked at our girlfriend?" And we're like, "What?" And they wanted to have a fight with us, and we're like,
they wanted to fight someone.
Yeah, they wanted to fight someone. So they started following us around the mall, and I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. And they followed us all the way. We got to one of the big stores, Sears or Woodward's or whatever. This is 1981.
Kmart.
Whoever it was. We'd find the security guard. We say, "Hello, Mr. Security Guard. You're wearing a uniform. Please help us."
Did the right thing.
Went to the authorities, and he said, "Okay, I said, can you walk us to my car?" And he said, "Well, sure, I can walk you to the door." So you're on your own after that.
Then run.
And so I had to. And so we I guess that's all we get. And so I had a 1967 Dodge Monaco, and with a literally dodgy starter. And so my friend and I run to the car. We jump in. It's like it's like boom. And then
scary situation,
yeah, and I
but
could
very
see
funny.
the dudes running, and they jump in their car, and they're like a Mustang, all souped up, and I'm on my Monaco, and we pull out of the parking lot, and then they pull up beside us, and they're like right beside us, and I'm like, and so
wow,
they were out to
scary.
get us. They were going to follow us all the way back to Langley and find out where I lived. Maybe I don't know. The things are going. You're just in panic mode,
Yeah.
and so I just decided. And we're both in the straight lane, and I just cut across and cut off all these families in their minivans and whatever in my Dodge Monaco, and I'm burning down King George Highway like 61 kilometers.
So that they couldn't follow you because you cut everybody off.
Yeah, so they were.
like,
I lost them, and I'm burning down. I gotta get out of Surrey as fast as I can, get back to the safe Langley, and literally I get suddenly I hear a siren behind me, and I'm pulled over for speeding, and I'm like, oh come on, I'm thinking, no, they're gonna find me, and the cop comes up and he says, and he gives me a speed, and I'm trying to explain my story. I'm trying to escape. This is a car chase.
And you had your buddy in the car, didn't you?
Yeah, and he said, yeah, but you were speeding, so here's your ticket. And I'm like, I was like so mad. I was like double whammy in Surrey for me.
Damn.
So I support
No.
Mayor McCallum's.
Way to change gears on that one.
The
in your Dodge.
were just doing their job, but it was.
Well, that would
and
have
I
been-
was so mad. I was like so vengeful after that. I felt like for the longest time, I just thought, yeah, if I ever see those guys, I don't know what I would do. But I was like, I probably would run. But if I ever see them, I'm gonna be scared again.
Yeah.
It was horrible, and I think that this kid, it's just like it's super scary. So it's
And that's just one that was caught on tape recently. There are lots of these happening, and the consequences don't fit. Kids don't get detention anymore. They get yoga class. I say it every week. I have an 11-year-old. If my child was the one that was a part of the swarming, I would want him held to account.
Absolutely.
I'm not even talking about what if my child's bullied.
How
I'm
do they
actually
learn?
talking
How
about
do these kids who bully me? What's going on? Why are they doing this?
Something's wrong.
So you have to deal with this.
Yeah, and it starts in the home, or that kid is very different at home than he is or she is at school, and we need to pay more attention, because those, as I say in my article, I believe that those unchecked violent acts turn into unchecked violent acts later on in life, whether it be at the criminal level or just a horrible, horrible boardroom level. So,
real second quick story, because I think it comes back to parents.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, the corporal punishment that still existed till I was about grade 3, I think. Anyways, there was a teacher who hadn't learned this, and we used to go around and flick ears. And anyways, one day I was a bit of a class clown, so he flicked my ear, and I'm, I go home that night, and I'm going, and my mom's like, what's wrong? Oh, my ear, it really hurts. He said, what happened? Oh, Mr. Whitney, or I think his name was, flicked my ear, and I'm really in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
What do you mean? The next day, my mom goes down. She was like mad, and he has to give an apology.
Good.
He has to, and this all was learned at the dinner table with your family. My mom protected me. She sought, justice against this act, and I think that's the problem. Where is the justice sometimes to this situation? So
the consequences need to fit the act, because there's too much space in between, because it used to be kids were, the flick in the ear would have been enough too as well, whereas today it's a whole new reality.
air conditioning's going on, by the way. That's our cue.
That's it. We got to wrap up. We're going late. We broke our spell.
Yes.
31 minutes of Unspun. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks.